Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning talk. The topic today is the ABCs of meditation. There's a little story behind this talk. A year ago, I was in Australia visiting some of our centers there. I was thinking when I was preparing this talk, it seems like it was 2 years ago. And then I realized, no, it's really just 1 year ago. But so much has happened in this past year with the pandemic and everything else. It's just hard to imagine that it's not even a full year since I was there. But it was actually just a year ago. And during that trip, I went to one of the sub-centers of the Sydney ashram, and that was in Brisbane. And they happened to be starting a little meditation class at that time, and the Swami very kindly asked me if I would kind of preside over the first meeting of that class and do a guided meditation. I don't particularly like doing these guided meditations. I don't feel very comfortable doing it and everything. So I asked him, is it okay if I just give a little introductory talk on meditation? He said, fine. So then I came up with this idea that to talk about some of the very basic elements and do it really A, B, C, D, E, F. Do it one by one. Start with some of the most important aspects of meditation and analyze them individually, and then of course try to put everything into a cohesive whole. And I thought it would be helpful to go through that with everyone here. Now I know that many of you are long-time meditators and veterans of meditation, and this talk, it was specifically for those just starting. It's kind of a beginner's talk, but as I was working on it, I realized how helpful it was for me. And the past couple of weeks, I started working on this talk actually 2 or 3 weeks ago, because I don't like to rush things. That my own meditations the past few weeks have been very interesting and a little bit more serious, because I've been paying attention to some of these elements of meditation, which we may forget sometimes. So I'm hoping that even for those of you who have been meditating for years and years and years, that you'll find this a little bit helpful. Now, the one thing we know, and that is that whenever we talk about any instructions in meditation or suggestions for meditation, that those who take initiation, the instructions they get at the time of initiation from the Guru are the most important instructions. One can follow them and not worry about anything else. But if we do examine some of these things and try to understand them and understand why some things are easy and some things are difficult, to me it's very helpful. And one of the things that I get out of all of this is that I understand the difficulties of meditation. Why is it so hard? This is one of the reasons why I spend so much time thinking about meditation, because I find that I don't always do it very well. And it's interesting to try to find out, why don't I? Is it my fault? Is it something about the process of meditation? Is something about what we're being asked to do? So I'll go through some of these things this morning. Now let me read the list first, and it could be many things. Actually, the first three are the ones that I felt were really the most significant ones, but there could be many things added to this, but this is what I came up with really on the spur of the moment when I was in Australia. First one is nama, the name. Second is rupa, or the form. So name and form, these two will go together. Then desha. Desha means place, and it'll have different meanings. Kala means time, that will also have different meanings. Then lila, the divine play. And then almost as three separate things, which will be very universally helpful in meditation. Abhyasa, which means regular practice. Vairagya, dispassion. And anuraga, love for the spiritual ideal. Now I want to start out with nama and rupa, that these are the two most important elements in meditation that Of course, there are different types of meditation. I'm talking mostly about the meditation that we do within our Vedantic tradition here, within the Ramakrishna order. There will be certain meditations that are strictly Advaitic. There'll be some where we practice mindfulness, we just look at the breath, some where people just repeat Om. There'll be all different types, but basically what we do involves the mantra and the Ishta Devata. Now these are the two things, Nama and mantra. These will go together, that the name will be found within the mantra, and Rupa will also be the form of the Ishta Devata who was named in the mantra. So this mantra will represent the name, because that will be included there. Very often there'll be Om first, and then maybe a Bij mantra, which is also another sacred syllable, and then generally the name of the Ishta Devata, and then there may be other additions, Namaha or something else, but these are some of the very basic elements. So we're told to repeat the mantra and to try to focus the mind on the form of the Ishta Devata, or the chosen ideal. So if we're meditating on Sri Ramakrishna, that the name should be included in the mantra, and the visualization process should be part of it, where we're trying to imagine the Ishta Devata. Very often we hear that the Ishta Devata will be sitting on the lotus, and to try to visualize. So this visualization of the form and this repetition of the name, Nama, Rupa, these will be embodied in this whole concept of the mantra and the Ishta Devata. So these play a very critical role, the essential aspects of meditation. Now, one thing that's very interesting is that name and form, Nama Rupa, in Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, especially in the Upanishads, these are considered to be the aspects of Maya which cover the reality from us. That actually our inability to see everything and its true nature as all-pervading consciousness is because of the superimposition of name and form. And we have to go beyond name and form in order to realize that highest reality. There's a very nice verse, beautiful verse from Mundaka Upanishad. Yatha nadyah syandamana samudre astam gachanti nama rupe vihaya. Tata vidwan nama rupa vimuktaha parat param purusham upayeti divyam. Just as rivers flowing become lost in an ocean, giving up both name and form, just so the knower freed from name and form attains the bright Purusha, which is beyond the avyakta, which is beyond this relative universe. So that ultimate reality. Now, this brings in a very nice concept that Sri Ramakrishna presents to us, and that is that this name and form belong to this relative universe. But this is what he calls this Vidya Shakti as opposed to Avidya Shakti. This is that power within Maya which can remove Maya. So we may say that we want to realize God who is beyond name and form. In our order, we've had a Swami Atmajnanananda and a Swami Arupananda. The bliss of that great being which has no name and no form. But it's through the help of name and form that we can go beyond this, because we need something to fix the mind on. We need something tangible. And the whole concept of Ishta Devata is based on the fact that the name and form are not ultimately absolute. That we choose them, Ishta. That we choose the name that appeals to us in the form and the aspect of God that appeals to us, knowing that other people have the equal right and equal validity to worship God and meditate on God with a different name and a different form, because the ultimate reality is beyond. It's both beyond name and form and allowing infinite names and forms. So this is that concept of Nama and Rupa. The mantra, we know, is different in different traditions. In some traditions, it's everybody knows it and everyone chants it out loud. We have our Hare Krishna, Hare Rama chant, and available to everyone, no secrecy at all. Then we have some that are known to others but are restricted, Gayatri Mantra. It has to be through initiation, and it has to be those belonging to a certain class, all of that. In the tradition that we follow, the mantra is considered something very, very sacred, and also something secret in the sense that we don't repeat it out loud in front of anybody else, that it's something that is given to us during a ceremony of initiation by the Guru, and we hold that something that to be very dear to us, and we keep it hidden within the cave of the heart, and we don't repeat that out loud to anybody else. So this is the mantra that we receive at the time of meditation, at initiation. Now, I want to talk about the two ways that we use this mantra. One is what we call japa, and the other we call meditation. And there are different opinions about this and different schools of thought about this. The radical side of both of these will be that japa is only repeating the mantra, and meditation is only meditating on the Ishta Devata, the chosen ideal. That means we repeat the mantra, we don't have to worry about the visualizing the image of the Ishta Devata or thinking about anything. We just focus on the mantra itself. And in meditation, whole mind is focused on the divine presence within in the form of the Ishta Devata, and we don't have to repeat the mantra. The other school on both sides will be that when we do our meditation, we can repeat the mantra at the same time, and when we repeat our mantra, we should have some idea of what we're thinking about. It shouldn't just be dry and mechanical. We read in the Yoga Sutra 128, Tad japaha tad artha bhavanam. So japa really has to include some type of meditation on the artha, on the meaning or the significance. Now, when we say the meaning of the mantra, sometimes people will ask, I don't know what my mantra means. As if it's some cryptic sentence or something with some deep meaning. It doesn't mean that. The meaning of the mantra, as we use it in our tradition, the meaning of the mantra will be, what does it signify? What does it represent? What is the object? So the meaning of the mantra will really be the Ishta Devata. It's not like repeating Soham Soham or Tattvamasi. That has a very deep philosophical significance. The mantra that we use, it's not so much a philosophical significance, but we have to know that what is that object of our meditation. As we're repeating the mantra, the mind should be focused on the object, both the form and whatever significance it has to us. And we'll get to this probably next time. I originally thought I'll do this as a single lecture, but it'll be at least two parts. That the Ishta Devata ultimately will be that infinite absolute reality, impersonal, transcendent. At the same time, the personal God dwelling within the heart. At the same time, if it's an avatar, that actual historical manifestation with the divine Leela and all of that, all wrapped up in one. So all of this represents the artha, that we can meditate, repeat the mantra and meditate with the help of the visualization, the form, and the significance of it, understanding who or what it is that we're meditating upon. This will be very helpful at the time of japa, and repeating the mantra at the time of meditation will also be very helpful. Holy Mother stressed this idea that it's good to combine both of them. It's very helpful when we're meditating. If we don't have the mantra to repeat when we're meditating, there's an even greater chance the mind will wander. And if we do japa without thinking of the meaning, we'll get some result. Again, Holy Mother promises us, whether you dive in the water or you're pushed in the water, you'll get wet. Either way, we're repeating the name. We have to have tremendous faith in the power of that name. We're repeating it, so there'll be some result. Even if it's mechanical and we're not really thinking much about it. But how much greater will be the result if we do it with concentration and with love and with devotion. So when we think about adding the significance of the mantra, we can also think of it as a kind of prayer. Each time we repeat the mantra, we can think of the different prayers that Thakur had. Each mantra repetition can be, reveal yourself to me, Mother. Or each one can be a prayer for pure devotion. Mother, grant me pure devotion, and may I not be deluded by thy world bewitching Maya. Each one can be like that. So it has as much significance as we add to it, in addition to the power of the mantra itself. There's tremendous power there. We have to have faith in the power of the mantra that we receive. But this adding this artha bhavanam to it makes it even that more powerful. Now I want to go to these two aspects of internal hearing and internal visualization. These are the two aspects, if we combine them, nama and rupa, that internally we're hearing. This mantra is interesting because I don't know if I would try to describe it more as repeating it or listening to it. We're doing both. And after some time, when it becomes spontaneous and effortless, we may get the feeling that we're simply listening to it more than we're repeating it. Or we're repeating it and that's enough. We don't have to think that we're hearing it. But there is some type of internal hearing that's going on when this repetition of the mantra is taking place. So this question of with the japa, and we'll talk about japa more in terms of this internal hearing, and I'll talk about meditation more in terms of internal seeing. Internal seeing. And the idea that I want to get to here, and it may be overly technical and it may not be interesting to anybody but myself, but I find it to be very interesting, is that there's a tremendous difference between hearing the mantra and visualizing the Ishta Devata. Now, before we go here, I've been reading this book. I've referred to it many times. It's reminiscences of some of the early Swamis of the order. Prachin Sadhudev Kotha. It's a wonderful, fascinating book. And I read some quotes from Swami Atmajnanananda. He was the 9th president of the Ramakrishna order. He says, through the repeated practice of japa and meditation, one's divine nature awakens. Then he says, japa is very easy. So now just forget about how much we can concentrate the mind, but just to be able to repeat the mantra. Everybody can do it. Japa is very easy. Not everyone can really meditate. So if we take meditation to mean this, partly at least this visualization technique, it's very difficult. Now by meditation we also mean making the mind go deep and get immersed in the object. Of course that's part of it, but I want to think of this in terms more of this visualization process. So not everyone can really meditate. Everyone indeed can do japa, but it must come from the heart. Pranteke dhawachai. It must be something deeply felt within. So now he's stressing that idea, this tada artha bhavanam. Whether we try to visualize it or not, that we should do it with some deep love and some deep devotion. Okay, now, I want to talk about this idea that, japa, we know that there's nothing very difficult about repeating it, and this visualization, at least for me, I find to be very, very difficult. Very difficult, and I wonder sometimes at how we're given this advice and we think that it's very simple advice, that we try to picture the image of the Ishta Devata, the chosen ideal, as if we're projecting it on a screen and then we can simply watch it. But we try to do it and we find that it's something very difficult. So I've always been very interested in why it's so difficult. So to go back to the statement that Swami Atmajnananda made, that repeating the mantra is very simple. Why is it so simple? If we think about it, the difference between repeating something out loud and repeating something in a whisper and repeating something silently but moving the lips and the tongue, and repeating it mentally without moving the lips or the tongue or making any noise, there's not much difference. We can replicate the sound internally almost exactly, that with the same pitch and the same tenor, and it can take the same amount of time. We can do it slowly, we can do it quickly, exactly as if we were doing it out loud. There's almost no difference whatsoever. This is something that has to do with the nature of the sense of hearing. And one of the reasons is, or the main reason is, that we hear things in time. We hear things in time and we see things in space. Now, this will sound like a very odd statement to make, but when it comes to meditation, it becomes a very important thing. That means that if we want to hear a song, we can't hear it all at once. It has to be one note followed by another note, followed by another note, and this is what we do mentally. We can have one after another after another. When we see an object, the whole thing is there all at once in space. Now, we may take our time and look at one aspect, then we go to a museum and we look at a great painting from a distance, we go closer, this and that, but the whole thing is there all at once. Now, when we're in meditation, we don't have that ability to see things in a space-based manner. Everything is time-based. So that means that every moment we have to recreate the image of the Ishta Devata. Whereas in japa, each one will be different one after another, one word. We can do it with anything. We can hum a tune. We can recite a poem to ourselves. We can sing a song to ourselves. We can even understand the voice that it's in. You know, when we think to ourselves, we think in our own voice. Have you ever thought about that? That it's so, this is why it's so intimate and so known to us. Because we use the same words, the same language, the same intonation, the same accent, all of that, mentally. It's almost a perfect recreation, and yet visualization is the exact opposite. Try to picture something, and then look at that actual thing. Look at something, then close your eyes, and try to duplicate what you've seen. Impossible. It's a completely different phenomenon. Because the senses work differently. As I say, we see things in space and we hear things in time. And how is this significant? It's only significant because in meditation we have to do everything in time. We can't, because it's all mental, and the mind functions in time, one moment after another moment. So all of this is to try to explain a little bit why it's difficult to simply project the image of the chosen ideal on the canvas of the mind and then look at it. Wouldn't that be nice? As if our eyes are open and doing it. We can do it with the japa. We can recreate the sound of the mantra spoken aloud within. But I find, at least for me, that there's almost no similarity. We're actually thinking the image. We're not really seeing the image within. Try to do it. In fact, we can picture the image of Ishta Devata or anyone with our eyes open. Try to do it. Try to picture what somebody looks like with the eyes open. We realize it's more of a thought. It's not really a visualization thing. To imagine something, to picture something, it's really not the right language exactly. And I've also come to the conclusion that what we're really doing is remembering what it looked like when we saw someone or something before. This is more what we're doing. Now, the whole point of all of this is that we shouldn't feel that we're the only ones who can't do it, that there's something wrong with us. Why can't it? Because so many people say that. I sit for meditation and it's hard for me to picture the image of the Ishtadevata? Of course it is. There's something inherently difficult about it. I came up with the best analogy I could think of, which is a very poor analogy, but still. Repeating the mantra is something like watching a waterfall and watching the drop by drop, how one follows another, one after another. And this process of visualization would be like trying to do a painting on that waterfall. Because the mind, it's not a canvas. It would be nice if it were. It's not like that. And we have to do it. So one after another, one moment after another, we have to kind of recreate that image within our own minds. Now there may be exceptions. And this is something that I wonder about very often. We hear about people with photographic memories. And I think probably there are people who can visualize better than others. That some have that faculty. And maybe it's a special thing that some people, they can do it. They can close their eyes and they can picture something. But really it's not that we picture it and we can look at it. We're projecting it. We're the ones who are making it. There's a very interesting conversation in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. I don't remember the context or anything. But someone is having a vision of Krishna, and with Krishna would have earrings. And he says, but Krishna, I don't see your earrings moving. So Krishna says, if you want to see them move, you have to make them move. That means that we're not projecting it and looking at it. We're the ones who are creating it. We're making it. We want them to move, we have to make them move. So why did I start talking about that? Oh, photographic memory. So maybe there are people like that. And we know, of course, that the mind can ascend to a higher plane where one can see very clearly, as if living, the chosen ideal. And this is kind of a question of grace. This is what in the Gita is called the Divya Chakshu, the divine eye, that this can happen in the higher states of realization when the mind ascends to a higher type of plane. But other than that, we're almost forced to apply the technique of japa to the technique of visualization. And that means that moment by moment by moment. And one way of doing this is by actually not taking the image of the Ishtadevata and looking at one part and then the other, but creating one part and then the other. So this is Swami Atmajnanananda gives that advice. First, it's not first look at the feet and then the hands and everything, but first feel that you're looking at the feet. That means project the feet so that we may see the whole image in some hazy way, but first try to look at the feet and then the hands and the arm and then the face, work your way up and then try to see the whole thing, the whole image of the Ishtadevata. And this is one way that we can allow the mind to use this moment by moment process of experiencing something which otherwise, if the eyes were open, we could take in all at once. We can just see the whole thing all at once. And if we want, we can go and look at different aspects of it. Now, one thing we can do in meditation, if we really have trouble with this visualization, every once in a while open our eyes. It's very good to keep the picture of the Ishtadevata. Suppose we're meditating on Sri Ramakrishna and the image is not coming into the mind. We open our eyes and we close our eyes, at least for a moment. That seems to come into a little bit of a sharp contrast for us. And in the worst case scenario, if we're really hopeless and that we find no other way of doing it, we keep our eyes open and we repeat the mantra. This is something that not every guru will allow, but some who are very liberal, who will say, okay, you really can't do it, then at least you'll be repeating the name and looking at the Ishtadevata. So these are different possibilities. Okay, so I think that we've done enough with Nama and Rupa. To me, it's interesting that how different the internal hearing and internal seeing are. And that's why japa is so easy. And yet meditation, if it involves this trying to picture the image of the Ishta Devata, is so difficult. But we have to persevere with it. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so I want to go to Desha. This is the next category. We have Nama, Rupa, and Desha. Desha means place or location. And this question is asked very often to Sri Ramakrishna, where should we meditate? Now, the first time we hear this, it may strike us that perhaps the questioner means, do we have to be in a holy place? Should we go to we have a shrine room? Should we have an asana? Does it have to have the tiger skin on it? Does it have to have this and that? And do we have to worry about the environment and everything? Now, these are all very interesting questions. And it is very helpful to have some sacred area that we keep specially for meditation, or to meditate in a holy place, in the center, in a temple, in a shrine, to have holy company when we meditate. All of these things are very helpful. But from the answer that we get by Sri Ramakrishna, we know that that's not what the questioner means. That we have this understanding that if we're picturing the Ishta Devata, that we have to picture the Ishta Devata somewhere. Now, we may say seated on a lotus. Okay, that's okay. Where is the lotus? So the idea is that we don't want to think of God as drifting in nowhere land. We don't want to think of God as far off in some heaven that we have no access to. We want to feel that God dwells within us. There's a very critical aspect to the whole understanding of Vedanta. God dwells within. So there's some spatial location within the body that is being referred to, because we read different things, that some people will meditate with the picture, the Ishta Devata at the top of the head. Some will meditate between the eyes. This will be more for the Jnanis. And Sri Ramakrishna talks about the Shiva Yoga and Vishnu Yoga. Vishnu Yoga, it'll be within the heart center. Then we read in the Upanishads that we meditate, we try to go deep within the cave of the heart. This cave of the heart, or the city of Brahman, Brahmapura. That there are different ways that it's referred to, that this is the essence of our being. Our consciousness dwells within the heart, not the organ of the heart, but within the chest cavity. So for the devotee, we can feel the divine presence within the heart. For the jnani also, and at least from the standpoint of the Upanishads, that this is the seat of the Atman, or Brahman itself. Ramana Maharshi, he makes a very interesting point. He says, if we ever refer to ourselves, "Are you talking to me?" We don't say, "Are you talking to me?" So our sense of identification is within the heart. So that's the self. And even if our meditation, a very devotional meditation, we want to feel that God dwelling within is the real Paramatman, is the real higher self. If we don't get that high, at least the indweller, at least the Antaryaman, that divine presence there illumining our individual consciousness. So Thakur will very often give this answer. He says that the heart is a very splendid place. He uses a very nice expression, Donka mara jayega. Donka mara jayega. It means beating of drums. If there's a big procession and big proclamation has to be made, the king wants to make a big edict or something, there'll be a beating of drums and everyone will come around and listen, and he'll make this big proclamation. What is that proclamation? The heart is a wonderful place. So Thakur recommends that as a general rule. As I say, he says that there will be some jnanis with a Shiva Yoga. They may meditate between the eyebrows or even at the top of the head. But as a general rule, he proclaims the excellence of meditating within the heart. Now, what does this mean? and how literally do we take it? How much do we think of the physical body with all of this? Now, there's a certain advantage to actually imagining this physical body. And I say this because we're going to bring in this tactile sense, this sense of feel. So far, our meditation has involved two different senses: hearing, only internal hearing, and seeing, internal seeing. Now, we're also going to add something about, we feel that we actually, at least in the beginning, we actually feel the heart center. This is part of it. It's not just imagining, but there'll be a little bit of the mind being directed to the heart center. Now, before I go on with this, I want to mention one other thing, which is also a little bit confusing sometimes to people. That they'll say, we'll hear them say, but I don't understand. The Ishta Devata is, we're supposed to picture within the heart and facing outward. And I'm also facing outward, and I'm supposed to be face to face and looking directly at the Ishta Devata, but we're both facing in the same directions. Well, how do we do it? Huh? Now, we may think that it's not a very interesting question or anything, but it occurs to many people. Even Swami Swahanandaji, he was a young boy. He was 15 when he took initiation. This was one of the questions he had. How exactly do we imagine this whole thing of myself being face to face with the Ishta Devata? This is the ideal thing, that we feel that we're in the actual presence, face to face, so that the Ishta Devata can be seeing us as well as we're seeing the chosen ideal. And the object of our love and our worship and meditation is looking back at us with great kindness and compassion and love. This is the ideal situation for meditation. So, the way I understand it is that we have to picture ourselves, imagine ourselves also entering into the cave of the heart. So that we're also spirit. The object of meditation is spirit, the meditator is also spirit. So if, for example, Thakur is seated on a lotus, where's the lotus? We try to feel the lotus is within Thakur's room. He's in his room in Dakshineshwar, sitting on his cot. And entering into the heart center, for me at least, will be entering into his room. Thakur is sitting on his cot facing north. I'm sitting on the floor facing south, and we're face to face. So this is at least one solution to this problem, if it's really a problem. And after a while, we want to forget this body consciousness at all. Once we're face to face, then forget about dwelling within the heart center. We don't need that at all. Then, if it gets even deeper, we forget ourselves, and it's only the Ishta Devata there. Even Sri Ramakrishna had these two different moods. He used to say, sometimes when I look within the heart, I find two are there. Mother is there and her child. That means I am there, looking at mother. Other times I find when this I consciousness disappears completely, mother alone is there. So, this is that element of desha, of space, that we try to feel. And as I say, it's partly imagining, dwelling within the heart center, and also there is an element of that sense of touch. And we know that the way the senses work, if the mind is not attached to one of the senses, we won't have that sense experience. That it's not enough for the senses to be working. Say the eyes are open, light is coming, the image is going to the back of the eyeball, the retina, and it's being sent to the nerve, to the brain center. If the mind is not attached, we won't see anything. So in the same way, with a tactile sense, that right now we can feel any aspect of the body if we put our mind to it. We can feel the tips of our fingers. We can feel the tip of our nose. Even internal things to a certain extent. But if we're focused on one, we're not focused on the other. This is the way it works. So if the mind is focused on the heart center, we find that we're not thinking of other things. If this is one way, if we suffer from achy knees and back problems and all of that, if we focus a bit of the mind on the heart center, the tactile feeling, that we place the mind from the sense point of view in the heart, then we become at least less aware of the sensations in the other portions of the body. Now, what does all of this mean with regard to concentration? And now I want to go to the different limbs of yoga, Ashtanga yoga. We've been studying this in the Raja Yoga class, and I noticed when we were going through a very long introduction, Swami Vivekananda's introduction, I noticed that of the four elements of meditation, this means the last four limbs of yoga, we have pratyahara and dharana and dhyana and samadhi. Pratyahara means withdrawing the mind from the senses, external senses, and placing it on something internal, and dharana, holding it on that internal sense. And the next two, dhyana, that'll be really when the mind, they say this avichinna dharavat, that taila dharavat, avichinna taila dharavat, an unbroken stream of oil being poured from one vessel to another. When it deepens into that, it becomes meditation. When that deepens even more, it becomes samadhi. Now, what Swami Vivekananda does, he has two chapters, and he puts pratyahara and dharana in one chapter, and dhyana and samadhi in the next chapter. And it's very significant, because the way he explains it, and which makes perfect sense, is that these two go together. When we try to withdraw the mind from the senses, and we try to place it on something internal, focus it, it's not that we do one first and then we do the next one after it. We are able to remove the mind from the external senses by placing it on something internal, through dharana. Dharana is the key that allows us to practice pratyahara. So, if I want to not hear external things, I replace that external hearing by focusing on the mantra with this internal hearing. And it's very interesting the way this happens. As I was saying before, that even if we have our eyes open and we're picturing something, if my eyes are opening but I'm imagining, I'm daydreaming a little bit, I won't really see what's in front of me. There'll be seeing that's taking place, but I won't really see it. We make a distinction between hearing and listening. That sometimes hearing because the sounds are going on, but we're not listening. We're not paying attention. Our attention is somewhere else. So this is how we remove our attention from the external thing by placing it on something internal. So this dharana is the way we are able to withdraw the mind from these external senses. So this is partly what we're doing with our meditation when we practice repetition of the mantra, when we practice visualization, and when we do this tactile thing, that we're tying the mind down to three internal sense experiences, which will remove the possibility of that external sense experience. Now, when we come to japa and we come to hearing, there's another very interesting phenomenon, and that is that we're not simply removing the mind from hearing external things, we're removing the mind from hearing internal things. Now, this goes back to another idea, that when we think in words, right? We think in words. We have a thought. If it's an emotion, it'll be a feeling. But if it's an actual thought, it'll come in words. And we can't think of two sets of words at the same time. If we're repeating the mantra, and the whole mind is on that, then there won't be any extraneous thought. Some extraneous thought comes, then the mantra disappears, or it becomes completely mechanical. It can be going on, but we're not focusing on it. Now, try this as a little experiment. Try to repeat the mantra or anything. If you're not initiated anything, just repeat Om, 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 Om. Try to repeat that with full concentration, and try to think a thought at the same time. You can't do it. It's not allowing the mind to do it. The mind can only think a thought when it'll replace the mantra. This is the power of the mantra, to concentrate the mind on something internal, removing it from, of course, external hearing, but also from the internal chatter of the mind. Now, this isn't the whole purpose of the mantra. Of course, the power of the name is something tremendous. The devotion that comes from it, so many other benefits, but this is one very particular thing, how it enables us to quiet the chatter of the mind. If we can do it. Now the problem is, it's not that easy to do it. It's not that easy to do it because there's competing desires of the mind. Some idea will pop up into the mind, and before we know it, it's taken over and we've lost our concentration. Mantra can continue. This is another aspect of a japa, that it can become automatic. Automatic and mechanical aren't exactly the same. That it can be automatic and we're still feeling it within and we're still getting benefit from it. It's become mechanical so that we hardly know that it's going on, but it's going on at the same time. Both are good, of course. If the time of meditation, it's not mechanical, it's automatic but not mechanical, and we're focusing our concentration very deeply on the mantra itself. Even if we're not thinking of trying to visualize the chosen ideal, just fully engaged in the repetition of the mantra, we'll find that the mind is quiet. And these thoughts can only come when they push aside our concentration. That we won't be able to do both at the same time. So this is how this pratyahara helps in dharana. That withdrawing the mind from the senses by placing it on something internal, but the mind is also an internal organ. It's also considered a sense organ. There's antakarana. So we're not simply cutting off the external hearing, but there's the hearing, this internal chatter of the mind. So this is another great power that the repetition of the mantra has. Now, one thing that's always emphasized is that, for a moment, forget about all the psychology of all of this, but the tremendous power that the mantra has. Holy Mother says it's like the tiny seed of the banyan tree that will grow into this huge, powerful banyan tree. That we have to have the tremendous faith and the power of the mantra and the sacredness of it. This, of course, will bring so much added joy and benefit to our spiritual practice. Okay, so I think this is a good place to stop. We've gone through Nama, the name, which will be represented by the mantra. Rupa, the form of the Ishta Devata, which will be part of our meditation. And Desha, trying to picture the Ishta Devata, the chosen ideal, as seated within the heart, unless we have some other teaching, within the heart center, facing outward, and that we're also there face to face, and we do our best. We do our best to picture the image, but if we can't, we understand that this is just the very nature of the mind, and hoping that one day that some grace will come and we'll have a sharp picture of it. I want to read. I forgot. I had it before. The experience that Ramlal had the day of the Kalpataru, when Sri Ramakrishna became the wish-fulfilling tree, because it's very helpful to see that Ramlal, he was Thakur's cousin, that he also had that same experience that many of us had. He said, I could formally see a part only of the holy person of my chosen ideal with my mind's eye at the time of meditation. Now, my whole point is that this language is completely wrong. We have no mind's eye and there's no real seeing. We're imagining it somehow. But anyhow, he said, when I saw the lotus feet, I could not see the face. Again, perhaps I saw the person from face to the waist, but could not see the holy feet. And whatever I saw never seemed to be alive. But no sooner had the Master touched me that day than the form of my chosen ideal appeared suddenly from head to foot in the lotus of my heart and moved and looked benign and effulgent. So this what seems to be impossible, to really have a sharp image of the Ishtadevata, the same way that we see something with eyes open, is possible when the mind ascends to some higher plane. And we get this divine sight, this Divya Chakshu. Okay, I want to stop here. We did Nama, Rupa, and Desha, and we'll continue with the other elements. But I want to read one more very nice quote from that same section, Swami Atmajnanananda, and within that quote he quotes Holy Mother also. He says, how many people can achieve real meditation? So by real meditation, I think partly it's this ability to visualize, but also the depth of meditation, where it becomes like that stream of steady stream of oil. How many people can achieve real meditation? The Holy Mother also used to say, is meditation a simple thing? They are truly blessed who can realize that state for even a very brief period of time. Now, I'm emphasizing all of this not to be pessimistic, not for us to feel that there's no hope for us, but to realize that we're talking about a very high thing to attain to the real state of meditation. We say that we're practicing meditation, we're really practicing this pratyahara and dharana. Meditation is a goal. If we can get a glimpse of that meditative state, a whole life can be transformed. So she says, they are truly blessed who can realize that state for even a very brief period of time. Now, next thing is very, very important. But the Lord is pleased if He sees that we continue to make the attempt, even though we fail day after day. There's tremendous results come. I always go back to a statement that Swami Swananji made, that the real fruit of meditation is devotion. We may not get any better at visualization or concentration of mind, but tremendous devotion will come to us if we don't give up. So she says, but the Lord is pleased if He sees that we continue to make the attempt. Therefore, we should not give up. On the other hand, if we force things too much, the mind often rebels. So we have to make sure that we don't go overboard. Then there is no royal path other than this. So this is a tremendous thing, whether we're on a devotional path or whether we're jnanis, it doesn't matter. That is meditation, it's called Raja Yoga for a reason. This is the royal path. This is something that is tremendously helpful even for karma yogis, because this is where we get that direct experience of the divinity within ourselves. So we'll continue next time with these other elements of meditation. I hope that this hasn't been too dry and analytical, number one, and I hope also that it hasn't been too depressing, that now we think, oh, why am I trying? It's impossible. We get tremendous benefit even from this attempt at meditation, and even if there's no clear image of the Ishtadevata, just feeling that divine presence within the heart, and remembering, and we'll get to the other possibilities, thinking of this divine play, all of that, other ways of practicing meditation, we'll find that it's indispensable in our spiritual life. So let me stop here with a closing prayer. Om sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti, hari om tat sat. May all be happy, may all be free from disease, may all experience only good things in their lives. May no one suffer from misery. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto all.